Hi everyone, it's Dr. Andrea McSwain. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you in on something that's really exciting that I've been working on behind the scenes. I can't give away too much just yet, but I've been putting together something that I know will help you take your health journey to the next level. For those of you who have been tuning into the podcast and following along in this journey, I've been listening to your questions, your challenges, and your goals. And that's why I'm working on a way to bring the powerful insights from the podcast and so much more into a brand new experience. Think exclusive content, personalized tools, live sessions with me, and a community of like-minded people who are all about feeling better and living great. If you're curious and you want to be the first to hear about it when it launches, make sure that you've signed up for my email list. That way you'll be in the loop on all the details as soon as I'm ready to share. Trust me, you won't want to miss out on what's coming.
Today's episode is sponsored by Vitality Health RX Supplements. Whether you're an athlete, a busy professional, or just someone looking to prioritize health, Vitality Health RX has what you need. With premium ingredients and rigorous quality control, their supplements support your body's natural functions. Visit shopvrx.com and use code FEELGREAT15 for 15% off your first order. Thanks to Vitality Health RX for sponsoring this episode. Now let's dive in.
So I'm aware with the colder weather, holiday travel, and indulgences, how we can ensure our bodies stay balanced and healthy. So let's dive into how a detoxin helps set you up for success before the holiday hustle hits. And many of you know that pumpkin goodies are already out on the counter, right? So that is really important to recognize that we need to get into this right away. Fall can be the time that we can really start to hit bottom with our willpower. It's cold, we want something warm, we want a goodie that gives us some simple carbs. People are happy to share with us some things that they've made, as they do things for different school events and activities for the community. And that can lead us down a really slippery slope where we're actually having a lot more fluid retention, a lot more headaches, a lot more tiredness. And so if we can actually get into the fall doing this kickstart of really getting the detoxing on board, then we're going to be able to help ourselves. And I definitely feel like I'm very much included in this. I really love the fall for this as a time to reset. And so instead of thinking about all the things that people talk about with fall, like, well, it's cold and flu season and the mold's on the ground and it's wet and cold and summer is going away when the days are, summer's so warm, it's so easy to be healthy and have all these activities, okay? So fall really gives us this junction of time where we're like, okay, we can either kind of, again, slide down that slippery slope of indulgences and being, getting sick and all those things that can happen in fall, or we can put a halt to all those ideas and actually start thinking about what fall affords us to be healthier and stronger and really get a lot out of the beauty of fall and the holiday season. Okay, so we turn all those trepidations of fall and turning into the holidays into actually strengths, right? And I think that's what we want to think about in life. We've talked about recently in some episodes, how we can actually look towards encountering what's happening in transition and embrace those changes that will make us stronger and more competent. So I love thinking about that approach as we go into fall. Yes. Also, when we look at fall, we have to bundle up more. Maybe we have to kind of enjoy that brisk walk because the morning is crisp in the weather, right? The temperature. The foods of winter become heavier and richer because they want to have a fuel source that allows us to have some reserve in the food. So more proteins, usually more fats, where a lot of times in the summer we think about the garden and fresh fruits and accessible vegetables. So we do know that there are challenges in fall, but we really want to think about what are the advantages. And also, if there are challenges in fall, how can we kind of make those objectives to address and resolve? And how do we do that? Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of ways to do that. Okay, first of all, I want to think about telling you about seasonal foods that I really love and why I love them. So root vegetables, squash, apples, how does Mother Nature support us in fall? It makes all of these really fantastic foods available to us. And obviously pumpkin, it's the pumpkin craze. I get that. Pumpkin's amazing. I have to tell you, I love thinking about pumpkin in a lot of ways because it's really yummy. You can eat the seeds, right? So you can also, you can just have a lot of variety. I've mentioned how much I enjoy going to Soup Spoon, which is a local cafe in the town that I live in, and having their pumpkin bisque. I love that. I love KPS's pumpkin mask because it gives that whole enzymatic healing that comes with pumpkin. And then it also gives that feeding that comes along with it as a superfood. All right. And I feel that way about that for other squashes. There's things you can do with food like spaghetti squash. You can actually kind of use that now as a noodle instead of pasta or grain noodles. So you can use spaghetti squash. You can add your marinara, your options for meat or ricotta or other cheeses and your spices. And now you might have spaghetti squash, right? Instead of just spaghetti. You can also put a lot of yummy things into it, other seasonings, possibly some maple syrup with it. And now you've got a really nice yummy treat like butternut squash with maple syrup and cinnamon, pumpkin spice, all those things. Now you might have turned fall from feeling the cold and such to feeling the warmth of these vegetables. Also, the root vegetables are very healing, and apples are fantastic for detox. Potatoes, actually, I was just talking to a patient the other day. I think potatoes have kind of gotten a raw deal. My favorite thing when I think about food is medicine, and I want to talk about that with apples, potatoes. I've mentioned this before. It's really important. Apples and potatoes can be eaten separately. And anytime I think about food as medicine, we're really thinking about not just food as healing, but actually food as medicine. Oftentimes, I want it to be in a monotherapy, like by itself. So, nothing to eat an hour and a half before or after those items, so you can really allow for them to be processed and digested into the gut and get your inflammation response to recover, which naturally happens. We naturally have an inflammatory response when we eat or drink anything for a certain duration of time that the inflammatory response exists. So 2 apples, eat those. You can put them in the blender, and that is a fantastic way to really support the fiber and pectin that comes from apples. Really helps heal that liver. Another thing is new potatoes with the skin on them. Throw them into the oven. So new potatoes are small potatoes, and you throw them in the oven for the time that they need to bake. When you take them out, you can optionally add salt or not. These new potatoes are very creamy. Avoid adding anything else to them, so no oil, no butter, etc. And when you eat these new potatoes, maybe with a little bit of salt, then you are really doing a great job of clearing and supporting the liver. Okay, so there's just a lot of fun ways that we can view these seasonal foods of the fall to heal us. Getting into the value of JJ Virgin's Lose 7 Pounds in 7 Days. I love the biochemistry in this book. I love how she makes it so available. And thank you, JJ Virgin. Thank you so much for really taking the biochemistry of the body and putting it into this fun book. It makes a lot of sense. It's easy to read. If you do what she says, you're going to succeed. Not always just in the 7 pounds in 7 days statement, but definitely in the idea of understanding how your body is responding to food. There's favorable responses to food, there's unfavorable responses to food. The lose 7 pounds in 7 days model is a wonderful way for you to understand there's different food sensitivities and their impact on your body. This is a great way to come into understanding how to remove certain foods that are very toxic. I think we can all argue that sugar is toxic, excess gluten is toxic, highly processed dairy in large amounts is toxic. And then there's just foods that are processed. So removing those, as J.J. Virgin recommends in this book, and then looking at how the reduction in inflammation is a jumpstart to weight loss. And weight loss for me is also a lot about fluid retention that comes from the inflammatory process. Okay, so removing that bloating, that swelling, that exhaustion that comes from when we eat foods that we're sensitive to, and our body responds by accelerating the inflammatory process. Our body responds by retaining fluid. Remove those foods that we're sensitive to, and all of a sudden, we remove the inflammatory response that is overwhelmed, and we start getting fluid reduction. So this is not a diet, okay? This isn't about 7 pounds to lose it so you can, by not eating, or starvation. This is actually about a reset to health. And that's what I want. Again, go back to thinking about fall. Think about a fall reset, taking advantage of what fall offers us, and then really using it so that we can go into a time to enjoy the holidays even more. When we look at detoxification and what's happening in the body as those cravings start to increase, right? A lot of people talk about willpower. Willpower and its controversy, basically. Willpower is interesting because it's a very complicated subject. I don't know that I can actually bring it all the way down to some brief talking points, but I will try. First of all, people talk about willpower as mental strength. And I get that. I know that sometimes if you have willpower that you're not going after something, right? But actually, I think our body has cravings for a reason. I do. And I think sometimes we go after those cravings so that we can actually get what we think we need in the immediate, right? If you're tired and you go for that cup of coffee, if you're tired and you go for that simple carb, that processed food, because you're going to get a high, it's because you're tired, right? If you're cold, you might think you want something warm, but you might pick something that's full of a lot of processed sugars and such, or it's highly processed and it's not beneficial to you. And so, but you might go after that because you feel cold. And when you feel cold, you feel tired and drained. That has really nothing to do with willpower itself. It has to do with the fact that your body needs something and you're trying to put in something to help your body in that moment. Okay, willpower is often related to the fact too that we actually need to be able to not have to grab for something in the immediate because our body's inflamed, our body's tired, our body's, looking for any resource it can obtain to make us feel better. I think though, when we have satiety, when we've slept, when we've been hydrated, when we're eating good food, we can look at something and it's not as attractive to us, right? You can look at a cookie and be like, I'm not interested in that, because it doesn't serve anything that you need. Your body's pumping well, your machine of your body's working, everything's good. You can look at something and say, that's not going to serve me. You can have maybe a sliver of pumpkin pie and say, that was really tasty. That feels nice. Thank you. But you're not going to go back for seconds, thirds, fourths. You might have a sliver of something, let's say a brownie, or there's a cheese tray that passes around, you have a bite or two and you say, that's good, right? And then you grab some vegetables, right? So this idea that you're not necessarily going for the cheapest source of energy, because when you go for the cheapest source of energy, sometimes people say that's a lack of willpower. But I don't think that. I think also when you reset and you gain this core strength back, you can then decide what goes in your mouth instead of just scavenging some cheap carbs or some cheap energy, fuel that's not particularly good for you in the long term. And that's how I view willpower. Um, you know, Other things which are really important as well, is when you do this reset, that you also think about what you don't need and what you don't want next to you, right? If ice cream is something for some reason you love in the fall, keep it out of your house, right? Cookies, I get that, but you want to make sure you don't bake a ton of cookies and then keep them in your home. It's not a good idea, right? Because eventually you're going to be tired. And because we get tired every day, and that temptation can get overwhelming. All right, so that was some conversations about willpower, because willpower is a really important conversation when it comes to being able to actually reset. And it's definitely an objection a lot of people have, like, I don't know if I'll have the willpower to do it. And I think that's a very fair question, right? But if you don't have the willpower to get through some detoxing efforts, then you know you're going to be really susceptible when the holidays come. So if you put effort into building up some good quality core strength, so the sleep, the good food, hydration, having things out of your house that make you tempted, right? If those things are in place, then when the holiday comes, you'll be much more likely to not go after things that are quick fixes, or have very limited so you enjoy the taste, right? And you enjoy the holidays. A lot of times people on the holidays make things that you never see any other time in the year. And a lot of times too, that can bring back really old memories that mean something to you. My grandma Tina used to make divinity, like real divinity. Most people don't even know what that is, right? I mean, and when I see divinity, I think of someone who's now been gone over 30 years now. Over 30 years she has been gone, and I remember this, thing that she made. I think a lot of people have those childhood memories and a little bit of that bite, and seeing those foods are just really wonderful and heartwarming. But do I need to have a tray of divinity? No. Do I even like the taste of divinity? Not particularly. There's been years where I've seen divinity at different events, and it warms my heart, and I don't even have to eat it. Other times I might have one, or even try to find a little break of one. So if you have those memories and you see those foods, sometimes it's just seeing them, and then other times possibly having a bite, but you don't have to go to having an indulgent amount. And that's really where we want to help in this respect. So, and I think some things are gearing up as well with, we are now starting people to have holiday gatherings that are mounting, right? There was a time a few years ago where people really weren't getting together much for the holidays, but now we're kind of back into that schedule of a lot of holiday activities and a lot of holiday indulgences. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, is you might have been able to escape it in a few years of recent. However, those things might now be forced upon you, because there's going to be a lot of activities this holiday season, and we want to make sure that we've got a good plan in place. The other thing often that happens, particularly in places that are cold, I think. So there's a thing in Michigan called the Michigan 10, and it's almost an expectation that a lot of people will gain 10 pounds in the winter. So it's kind of an assumed weight gain, because people lose a lot of physical activity time, because sometimes it's just actually treacherous to walk on the sidewalk here. And so if you live in a place that can really make it difficult to be outside for a lot of days over the winter, there is just kind of that happening where there can be a weight gain. If that's the case, you really want to look to the fall to make sure that you're really getting in place those keystones to kickstart your well-being. okay? Because we know too the cycle of stress, eating, partaking in holiday events, trying out different things, those all kind of lead to potentially indulgences. So that busy lifestyle, right? That grabbing food, it's easier to skip dinner or grab fast food. You show up at the holiday event and your blood sugar's dropped, and suddenly every cookie feels essential, right? There's like trays of cookies, and you're like, oh, yay, let me just try this and let me try that. And as you do that, your blood sugar is spiking, right, with the cookie or the carb intake. It's processed, so there's a lot more inflammation in your body. And then your body's confused, like literally actually confused about what's going on. And so then you go for that next cookie. Also, your blood pressure, wherever your blood sugar elevates, it also drops, right? So your body likes to stay very even keeled with your blood sugar. And so when it spikes, it means it's going to trough. And so now if you can imagine in your mind's eye going to a beautiful holiday event, right? You look great, but you were a little harried getting there. Either there was some stuff with the family or your work kind of ran a little bit longer. You'd really meant to grab some, a nice like steamed, veggie bowl with maybe some protein of choice. And you kind of had to bypass that. And maybe you got a few quick bites in, but you didn't get a chance to kind of divide your day between your previous activity, and now you're roaring as fast as you can into this evening of fun, right? And you get there, someone hands you a glass of alcohol, and you're like, okay, sure, and that sounds nice, you're an adult. And then the next thing you do is you look, and there's this like smorgasbord of options. The alcohol has spiked your blood sugar and possibly even troughed it at this time. Your liver is confused, and now everything is, your eyes are very big, right? And your gut is like, sure, I can take that on. I'll take that challenge. And now these indulgences start just feeding in. If that's the case, so I think we've all been there, right? If that's the case, first, before grabbing a glass of alcohol, make sure you have water. Make sure you do go to the vegetable tray first, and grab some cheese for protein, or if they have something savory. It might have a lot of salt, and sometimes that can overwhelm the system as well as sugar, but try to get some water in, get your plan in place. Here it is. Come in, nice glass of water, grab some protein sources. So maybe there's some nuts, there's a tray of nuts and seeds, or there's cheese and crackers and vegetables. Get to that first, and then pick, one thing, put it on your plate, and say, that's it. That's what I'm having, right? And then, before you ever, if you need to go to round 2, do the same thing again. Get some more water on board, get some protein on board, and then have a carb, have a treat. So you're really mitigating your indulgences, okay? And you're also not bringing the stress into the eating. You're having fun. Maybe you're laughing with someone. You're really enjoying your time. There's a lot of people to talk to. So that glass of water, you end up really kind of nursing it for a long time, but that's okay. And then your blood sugar is staying very stable. You're staying very calm. You're enjoying the company of others over the food. And so that's some practical tips there. The other thing I do that maybe you want to do too is I put some things in the glove compartment. I also like to have a protein shake at the ready. Again, as holidays come and we can't necessarily navigate all the timing of things, as things come up emergently and urgently, definitely want to make sure you have protein shakes on board, protein treats, so that you can grab those. And then you want to just take a minute, drink your water, have your protein, and then you'll be able to have a reset. But let's talk about a little bit larger reset that actually can have it so much easier. So now when you go into a circumstance for the holidays, or you're cold from the fall or the change in season, those kind of things, that you can have this already like kind of hardwired into yourself so that you go into any environment and you're like, I'm good. I have taken care of what I need to eat, and I'm just here to have a good time and have fun. So that is very helpful when we think about a detox. Okay, so detoxes are an interesting conversation, and obviously this word is controversial. I don't want this to be a controversial conversation. I really want this to be education based. What we're talking about is that the body has a number of ways for elimination, and sometimes those ways get a little overwhelmed. Now, it's very easy in the summer to have fun and move and laugh, and there's a lot of breaks in the summertime, so people can have a little more time off, things of that nature. However, we get into the fall, we want to be a lot more prepared because our body starts to have more requirements. As it's cold, we need to there's higher demands on our mitochondria to thermoregulate. Our thyroid has greater demands. And so if there's not a way to get out those toxins or support those elimination factors as well, then they start to actually kind of accumulate. They don't start to actually accumulate, do accumulate in the body, and they overwhelm our elimination pathways. So if we actually facilitate our elimination pathways in a very concerted and a very evidence-based research manner, we can actually support in the detox pathways, the elimination pathways. And we can actually do that in a very narrow window, so we can really open those elimination pathways. So the colon, the guts, right? The liver, the kidneys, all these things are facilitated. So we now don't have those toxins that are accumulating more than we can get out, because we're able to facilitate the elimination process. So do they really work, or are they a trend? I can tell you, we've done hundreds in my practice. I love the 7-day detox. I don't love the 14-day detox, okay? And I do love when people look at the gut and they say, okay, the gut has a turnover of 23 days. So in 3 weeks or the whole 30, if I use that, right, I'm gonna have a good cellular turnover in the gut. Very true. That is science, right? If I use different herbal supports and different nutrients that the body uses, right? So the biochemistry is known in the body, and I facilitate those pathways, I'm going to move out waste, and I'm going to make the tissues work better and more efficient. And so I'm not going to have to put so much energy in order to get energy out to do the things that I need. And the demands will not be so taxing on the body. So the liver, the thyroid, right? The mitochondria. And then you can really concentrate your efforts into a 7-day period. And I think that's amazing. And there's ways to do it better than other ways. And that's why I love the way that we do it. In the meantime, you're thinking about, what leafy greens can I get on board? What cruciferous vegetables? What are good fruits that hydrate and nourish the body? Also, as I mentioned, the daily habits, drinking plenty of water, moving in the body, getting the heart pumping. We're going to talk about that in the next few episodes, and I'm really excited to talk about the heart. And I'm very excited to talk about movement. So we want that blood flowing, right? We don't want that cool feeling, right? We don't want that congested feeling that happens in fall. And a lot of you know what that means from actually sinuses, gut bloating. Those are the symptoms that people have in fall, kind of that weight gain, that sluggishness, that kind of slow down thing that happens for some people. So let's work on just kickstarting your body and get ready for all the things we can enjoy when you have more energy and more movement and your body's just working more efficiently. So that's what I wanted to say. I encourage you to grab JJ Virgin's book, Lose 7 Pounds in 7 Days. It's, like I said, it's absolutely fantastic. I would encourage you just to buy it and just keep it. Read it, share it. It's very It's a very light read. It has a lot of biochemistry that's converted into smiles and fun, but it's still based in science, and I think she's nailed it. So I just want you to know that. And as I mentioned, our next episode is going to be about movement. I'm calling it Move to Remove. So it's a more emphasis as well on just getting that body the ability to get stronger and do that kickstart. And thank you for joining me today. I hope that you've gained valuable insights. I would really love your feedback in the comments section so that I can clarify anything or questions. And I can't wait to tell you more about what we have to come. Thank you.